On the 11th anniversary of 9/11, American embassies in Egypt and Libya were overtaken by violent mobs that murdered a U.S. ambassador and 3 other Americans. And so we are now forced to look beyond our own economic woes, take stock, and consider afresh what role America should rightfully play in this world. America's indispensable role in the victories of World War I and II and in vanquishing fascism and Soviet communism lifted this nation to the status of the world's lone superpower over the last generation. But that was then, and this is now. Fact is, American power is ebbing not just in the Middle East, but around the world. Not only are Islamic fundamentalists, murderous enemies of all America stands for, seizing the levers of power in the Middle East, but the economies of most of our allies in Western Europe are in deep crisis, and China, still ruled by communists, has become both an economic power and expansive military threat. And there appears to be little we can or will do about any of it. Unlike the days of the Cold War, when our enemy was powerful but measurable, the forces working against American interests are now dark and shadowy or beyond our control. As we have discovered in a combined 20 years of war in Afghanistan and Iraq, it is an excruciating task to defeat an enemy whose hatred for America is manifest more in the hearts and minds of millions of ordinary people than in the rulers of nations. It is almost impossible to force our longtime allies to make responsible economic decisions, and it is impossible to force China to do much of anything. As we wrestle with what America's role should be in this not-so-brave new world, the most important issue is not actually our military strength, but rather something not usually associated with America's role in the world: our national debt. The debt, which just surpassed $16 trillion, is our greatest national security threat for a number of reasons. Our defense budget is now threatened by a sequestration or automatic reduction of some $500 billion after this year's elections. And as the debt, projected to increase by trillions more as far as the eye can see, consumes more and more of the federal budget in interest payments, and we refuse to reform an expanding and economically ruinous system of entitlements that consume more than half of the budget, pressure for spending reductions is likely to fall even more on the military. The reality is that we're broke. We're out of money. We're a debtor nation, and debtor nations do not have either the economic or moral authority to lead. How can a nation that is unable to keep its own fiscal house in order exert leadership around the world? How can we help guide Greece or Spain or Italy to prosperity when we have so seriously compromised our own prosperity? And how can we expect the nations of the Middle East or China to respect us when we've treated our own economic future with such disrespect by piling trillions of dollars of debt on our children and grandchildren? Leading from behind is a contradiction in terms, but absent the willingness of the American people to elect leaders who are willing to make the hard decisions to right our economic ship, it's about the best we can hope for.